Welcome back, YouTube. As the Drunk Kappas here. Today we got another video. Today we have Vince Staples. Now, Vince Staples is a artist from the past. He was very famous around, the early 2010s, early 2000s. He came up alongside like Tyler the Creator, Earl Sweatshirt, and the other, OF Odd Future gang people. He's a very prominent musician, but he's very well known these days for his podcast appearances. So recently, he appeared on the Joe Budden podcast. Now, everybody knows Joe Budden. He had that one hit, Pump It Up. And ever since then, he's a great artist. He's an absolutely great lyricist. But he can't sell albums. Like, no one's buying Joe Budden albums. So Joe Budden has been on the podcast scene for a very long time, and he has been famous from doing his podcast and famously also blowing them all up afterwards. But in this conversation, they start talking about generational wealth and its correlation with artists specifically in the music industry. So let's get right into that video.
It's over.
No,
I know it's over.
No,
I'm just making
over.
I'm just making sure because you be switching up sometimes.
How I switch up?
Because you be like pro art and pro artist, but then you be like it's over. You
Get at me. Get at me. Let's go.
You gotta pick a side, bro. Because you like to. I love you, and you like to lie to yourself. But that's a part of creativity. You know what I'm saying? You like to lie to yourself. Because we remember we talked about the other day. We was talking about record label contracts and all this other stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about missing marketplace, and I'm not gonna get into the convo on mic. We talk about the marketplace and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
You can't be pro all of that and then be
Pro art?
Yeah, you can't be pro art.
Yes, you can.
But you're not pro marketplace.
I'm not pro marketplace.
But the art needs the marketplace, though.
That says you. Art is art if there's no marketplace.
Well, art for commerce.
If one person, and that's where our conversation gets tricky. I'm not on the side of music industry and music industry infrastructure, how they pay out, the rules, the setup, the design, the 360, the everything, the lawyer to.
You do know that all of our biggest artists got the 360 though.
Let's see. I do not know that Drake is in a 360.
Now, probably.
You do not know.
I'm talking about the beginning.
Up, slow down. We ain't talking about the beginning.
Yes, we are. Because that's how you find niggas. Don't do that. We talk about the beginning.
So right now they're talking about the 360 deals and the way that the music industry is structured. Essentially, I'm sure everyone knows by now, at least, that artists don't become famous for the most part unless they get into the machine that is the music industry. The machine will pump you up and pump you out and get your complete value. But what happens when you're independent is that you really have to grind for that attention, really have to grind to find that value in order to make any money. So when people talk about, like, Joe is saying that he's anti the industry but he's pro art, it's like, well, for the most part, most artists, they say they're starving artists, but they wouldn't talk about being starving if they just wanted to do the art, period, and that they didn't care about the commerce part of it and actually making money from it. So it's an interesting conversation. It's the same problem that pops up all the time when it comes to large creative industries, including the film industry that's happening right now, where the industry itself is the huge investor in all of these creatives, these artists, and the artists create the product, essentially. And most people don't like the structure because they feel as though the artists don't get paid enough, and all these other people that are layered throughout the industry seem to all get paid, but the artist doesn't feel like they get paid enough.
Well, these came after they changed the rules.
It's investment, you know what I mean?
We're not talking about 30 years ago when I got signed.
Yeah, I know, but the more you invest, the more return you want. So if I know I'm getting 15 or 20% of your touring, then I'm going to make sure you have an opening slot on this tour. I'm going to make sure you have some sort of tour support. I'm going to make sure that you have a bravado deal for your merchandise. I'm going to make sure that you have certain features because I get a return. If I only get a return on the music, then yeah, I'm not paying 50 grand for this verse, but I get you the verse that's 25, and you on your own when you on the road. Take your ass down to South by Southwest. You on your own when it comes to the merch. Take your ass down to the blah blah. But everybody that has, a pop-up shop.
So he's explaining like how these artists get more visibility and like connections in the industry. And Joe was saying he doesn't know if they got like 360s or whatever, but you know, Vince is basically saying like they have to. I mean, like you are not gonna get a Nike deal if you are just an independent artist. You're just not gonna get it because you don't. How are you gonna get that connection? Who do you know? Who do you know? It's just not gonna work. And he's explaining how the industry has that incentive for themselves in order to give you that deal, because if they put you in a 360 deal where they make money off of your sales of merch or whatever it is or a product, then they're going to make sure that you get a deal with that product producing company. It's just that simple. I'm not saying that those large companies don't ever work with independent artists, but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And if a label is like, hey, I'm signing this person over here for 500,000 and I'm signing this other person over here for 10 million. The person that I signed for 10 million, I just gave them $10 million. I have to make sure that I make that money back and some. It got to be worth something. But a lot of labels lose money on the artists that they invest in. They end up losing money because they usually sign them on one hit record or something, right? Then they lose money. But then they have that one huge artist. They get like a Beyonce or a Taylor Swift or a Drake or a Weeknd. And they get that one artist. And that one artist is really the person that is like feeding the entire industry, right? That one artist is the reason why that person that got the 500K deal even got that 500K deal. Because the labels is losing money on the people they signed for 10. They losing money on the people they signed for 2 million. And they're making the money off the people that, you know, are selling out shows, making, you know, 3 billion on a tour. So, I mean, that's a long explanation. That's basically what happens.
Or these certain things, the bravado type situations, they got a 360 deal.
All of that is cute. The 360 is number 100 on the list of things wrong with the music industry infrastructure. 360
sure.
Is not at
So Joe's saying the 360 not that important. I kind of agree.
the top of the. That ain't in the first 20 things we got to discuss.
But
I'm
what's
not
number
all
one,
the way
though?
mad.
When people realized what 360 was, like a few years ago, when people realized what it was, everybody was just like, "Oh my God, they taking all your stuff. They taking a piece of everything. It's the worst thing in the world." But they never explained, like they never finished explaining, because like they were like, "Yeah, it turns out that the label they taking money off the movie that I did. They taking money off the commercials. They taking money off the merch. They taking money off this and that and that and that." But they never finished explaining that whole thing. They just left us there and made us demonize the industry, which I'm not saying that the industry shouldn't be demonized. I'm saying they just let us demonize the industry without having the whole story. And the whole story is you wouldn't have got none of those situations. You would have never had any of that if not for the label itself.
What's number one, though?
Niggas got mad at
The
me.
way they pay out.
That's number one.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Would have to be. Yes.
Go, Paul.
That changes generational wealth. It changes generational wealth.
You
They pulling
Dog.
tips.
No,
They pulling
but
tips.
I
You
think
want me to tell you what happened with oh man, come on, man. You're gonna make me start.
So you don't want to talk about like the
So now they get into the generational wealth now. Joe is really about to say like, because the music industry doesn't pay the artists enough, and by enough it's relative, right? Because we're talking about percentages. We're not talking about just the straight dollar amount. Because when we talk about artist dollar amount, we talking about a lot of dollars, okay? But if we talk about percentages, he might have an argument. But once you talk about the dollar amount, I feel like that's where we might have to have some issues. I don't know what he's gonna say about it, but I think that's where most people fall off on the conversation.
clickings on the shit. Because generational wealth is decent if you
Culture.
got, you know, it's easy if you got decent spending habits or like an appreciation for home ownership and appreciation for education. You know what I mean? Median home income, where I just moved from, where the average home cost is $3 million. The median home income is like 120. That ain't even like a 30-minute set for me. You get what I'm saying?
To sum up what Vince Staples is saying in that statement is the age-old quote. It's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you keep. So you could talk all day about, you know, you didn't make as much millions as you thought you could have, that therefore now you don't have generational wealth. But if you're talking about the culture and how you actually spend that money, you actually did have you did have the opportunity to have generational wealth if you would have bought a house with it and paid cash, the cash that you had, or you would have did something else with it.
Saying. So what I'm saying is I'm not the biggest artist. So for 30 minutes set ain't 110 and 120, that's the median home income, you know, Laguna Beach, California, Newport Beach, California, and we can get that 5 or 6 times in a month.
He's really breaking it down right now. He's saying I make $110,000 to $120,000 in less than 30 minutes. That's the median income of a family, like a 2-family per household in where he comes from in California is making the same $120,000 in a year that he's making in less than 30 minutes. So if you are an artist and you're in his bracket of like you know, his star status or whatever, because he's not like a headliner, you know, type of artist. He's not a Drake, he's not a Beyonce, he's not at that level. And I think he's fine with that. I think he's comfortable. I don't think he wants to be at that level, if we're being honest. If you're at a level where you're making over 100K per show and you're saying you don't have any money, it might not be the money, it might be you. Like it's a tough thing, man.
Talking about now, we're not talking about 30 years ago, as we said, because it was much different.
But hold up, Ish. My problem is you're talking about now, and I say generational wealth, which is we need to talk about the future. That's cool that you can do that when you walk on a stage and perform. I'm talking about what happens for your grand and great grandkids when you cannot perform.
Of course, but what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is generational wealth is based on setting something up.
Knowledge.
You can't really set something up based on how we treat
the
people.
knowledge is next on my is right under my list.
But
fix the money and then we'll work on getting the knowledge.
What I'm saying is
culturally.
Exactly. And Joe got it out of order. Joe wants the money first and then try to acquire the knowledge. But like, the thing about that is, if you get the money first and then you'll try to acquire the knowledge, you might run out of money before you get the lesson. you might run out of the money before you actually get the lesson. That's why it's always good to know the industry first and then get into the industry to make the money, because then you're going to maximize the amount of money you get in the first place, and you're going to know how to actually invest that money. Like, but if you get the money first, as it fixed the money situation, and you don't know what to do with it, you're still going to have the same end result until you actually learn the lesson. And it might be too late. And that's how a lot of these artists end up being super duper bitter, right? They end up being super duper bitter. Like Joe was mad bitter. Like he was bitter. He's been bitter. I think he's still bitter. Like he might still be bitter. Especially when it comes to all the deals and stuff that he tries to do. It's like he always ends up bitter because he is always on a rampage to like extract as much money out of the situation as possible now that he has the knowledge. But he's coming from a place of loss, because when he first came on the scene with, you know, Pump It Up and all that stuff, he probably lost millions of dollars in the process because he didn't have the knowledge. But that's the whole point. If you had the knowledge before you had access to that money, you would have been better off.
You got some bad stigmas that just fuck us. You feel me? Like, we can say whatever we want to say about people's albums and if we like them or not, because music being good or bad is subjective. But we had the biggest rapper in the world say he loved his wife and the niggas called him corny and took his career away from him. So when we talk about generational wealth,
who's the biggest rapper in the world?
Oh, Chance, when it was paying for it. It wasn't paying for it.
So now Vince is getting super multi-layered with the conversation now. Now he's talking about the fact that our culture, the hip hop culture and black culture, you know, generally, right now we're in a weird space where people are, you know, often men are talking about not getting married, not having a family, but then they're also talking about building generational wealth, which those two things don't actually work together. You can't build generational wealth without a family, right? And then when you have hip hop artists that are talking about their family, like Kendrick, Chance, you know, what have you, Common, those type of guys that are talking about these type of things that do work together, we're like, ew, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. Throw that away. Throw that in the trash. We got to talk about something else. So how are all these things going to work together if you're not actually doing both things at once. You're talking generational wealth, but then you're also talking being single until you're 60. Doesn't really work.
At the time,
Yes, but
you know what happens when they pay for it, don't they? The same niggas that pay for him pay for Frank Ocean and pay for Drake at a certain point in time. So he wasn't Drake, but I'm talking about up and coming.
he was, yeah.
So at a
It
point in
killed me for
time,
my chance.
come on, we talking about generational wealth. Niggas don't even want families no more.
Dog, niggas do not want to hear how much you love your wife sprinkled over 19 tracks.
I know, but
It's your job
you like
as a-
R&B though, right?
Love it.
What's the difference?
I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear all R&B talking about I love my wife and.
I don't think the content was
hey,
the issue with that album, by the way.
No, I'm not saying it, but
You can't love your wife that long.
You can love your wife, but it's got to be fire.
think about what you just
Give
said.
me
That's
one.
crazy.
Give me
Think about
one
my
person
nigga.
that did it.
You can't love your wife that long. That does sound crazy.
They love their
In
wife.
hip hop,
Over 19 tracks. However long
hip
that
hop
album
been
was.
fucked up since the beginning. So like, you can't really put hip hop in that equation.
Okay, then I win.
You feel me? Marvin Gaye had his girl on the whole album,
Not sure why Joe said that he wins.
and she was doing every run, every background. It was cool. Like that was a thing back then. You know what I'm saying? But then niggas ain't
Well, they
doing
was
that
also
no more. That
signing
was-
adults back
Huh?
then.
What'd you say?
Those were also adult men back then.
Yeah, but there was
not when he
adult-
signed.
Not just that, but the message was different.
Marvin
Hip hop
was young
back
when
in
he
the day
signed.
was
Yeah.
baby, baby, please, I love you, baby, baby, please. These new niggas be talking about suck my dick, bend
How
over
old-
backwards
how
on the
old was
hip
he when
hop.
he signed?
I mean, on R&B.
But
Them niggas just looked old back then too.
Yeah,
He
bro.
might have
they-
been 19.
And
World
And
Be
when
Free
I
was
get
19,
that
no, he-
feeling, world be free.
Nah, he was
Yeah,
older.
he's such an old soul nigga. World be free.
I'm just saying them niggas look bad back then, bro. That was real oppression by the white man. Like, it's no other reason that she look like that.
All right, so we signing
With the
over.
fuzzy TV screen.
All I'm saying, bro, is if
Malone.
a rapper showed they fan base, they starter home that cost $700,000, your career might be over. If a rapper showed a nigga they Toyota Corolla, your career might be over.
he was 22.
Facts.
So his
I was-
first album came out.
That's young. I would say culturally, that's our
That is
main
young.
thing. Because
You're right.
to be honest, like if you get $1 million advance or a $500,000 check, essentially you should be able to set something up. But when you get that, you talk about it all the time. Oh, you looking good. You got the watch. You got the chain. You got this. You got the people with you. Blah blah. All that shit costs money. So once we start leaning into that, and a nigga got to blow the first 500 to get right.
So
A down payment on a $2 million house is $200,000. I mean, $1 million, $200,000. $2 million house is, you know, $400,000. So if you get that in a decent neighborhood where your kids can go to public school, where you don't gotta be overly fly, where you don't gotta do all that extra shit, then you got generational wealth. So we can't say that niggas can't set up generational wealth when we say that motherfuckers getting millions of dollars and
He's doing the math, y'all. He's doing the math, and he's making it make sense. He's literally telling y'all, you're getting it. Too many hip hop artists are getting advances and blowing advances on chains, on clothes, on cars, and things that rhyme with that. And then they say, we didn't make enough money. We should have made more. And it's like, okay, that might be somewhat true, but with what the millions that you made, you actually could have did something with that. But then the problem is that it's like a chicken and an egg thing. It's like, what begetted what? Was it the image that begetted the culture, or was it the culture that begetted the image? Because now we have a culture where when we see rappers and they're not dripped out, we don't even want to hear anything they gotta say. And I think that comes from the substance of the music, because we don't have that same type of smoke for a J. Cole or a Kendrick Lamar, but we have that type of smoke for artists that say those type of lyrics. So if you come with those type of lyrics on your track, we're expecting to see this, right? So if you say, oh, I got the finest whips, I got all these jewelry, I'm dripping down, I'm eating lobster, and then on your Instagram post you're in a regular house that anybody else could get, people look at you kind of funny, because basically you're lying on your tracks, right? But instead of you being a real artist and not lying on the track and like actually creating music more along the lines of something like a Kendrick Lamar, you're doing these quick, easy bite type music, the that TikTok stuff, and now you have to have an image that presents it. So now when you get that advance, now you're blowing the advance on your image in order to please the culture. And then years down the line, when you're basically broke, you're like, it's the record label's fault. They messed it up. They made it to where I couldn't have generational wealth. And it's like, it just don't work like that. Like it just doesn't. Like, you the artist, you also have to handle your business. Like, yes, you're the artist, but you still have to handle your business. If you want generational wealth, you have to do everything along those lines in order to get there. It can't just be, I expected more money, and if I had more money, more money would be left.
Been a dentist, I could have been a lawyer. Them niggas.
Nah, you make a good point, but that's tiny generational wealth.
What?
You know what I'm talking about? South African shit.
Well, no, I'm not gonna be ignorant. I'm not gonna
Nigerian
be ignorant.
Joe, yo.
But I see.
That's crazy. Saying like dentists and lawyers and stuff is tiny generational wealth. Like, this is what I mean. Sometimes Black people just don't understand how poor we really are. Like, no idea. To the fact that you really think that like a dentist generational wealth is not something crazy. Like, really? Like, dentists make a lot of hundreds of thousands of dollars, but that's just their salary. If they have generational wealth because their dad was a dentist and their grandpa was a dentist, they don't even have to worry about making any of those connections or even investing into creating a whole new dentistry business. They have an established dentistry family business. Like, I go to the dentist, it's my dentist's last name, and it says his family dental. Like, his name, family dental. His brother's a dentist. His dad's a dentist. His son is probably going to be a dentist. Like, and I'm sure they have a heap of generational wealth. I'm sure they've purchased stocks from 1950. Like, and to say that that's small is like, man, that's part of the problem. Is everybody want to just go big or go home, and it's like, it's okay to just build. Like, it's okay to start small. It's okay to get that $500,000 advance and start small. That's why I love me some Larry June. He's probably one of my favorite artists. He is actually independent, and I think he probably has some of the best information when it comes to doing the music industry independently and also investing in stuff. He has a little clothing line. He owns a little smoothie shop. So he's doing stuff in order to create his generational wealth, even though he never got that huge advance that everybody else got. So he wasn't flossing out years ago and saying, oh, he got all this flossing and stuff. He was talking about regular things. So he didn't have to have that image. So I think it's just all crazy.
I see the point, but no, niggas don't want to do what you talking about.
No, Joe Biden.
And that's how you have it. Joe Budden said at the end, they don't want to do it. They don't want to be responsible. They don't want to actually have to be the person to handle their business and have that generational wealth. It's a lot easier to just blame the system, blame the machine, even though the machine is what gave you most of what you have. I think it's a tough conversation to have with people, but that's all I got for you guys today. Generational wealth in hip hop. Will it happen? Is it happening? I'll see you guys next time. Peace.